Once upon a time, there was a beautiful young woman named Psyche, who is so beautiful that the goddess Aphrodite hears that she is, in fact, the most beautiful of all human women, and even more beautiful than any goddess. This, of course, will not be allowed to stand. How dare a mere mortal compete with the gods? So Aphrodite plans for Psyche to fall in love with death. To accomplish that, Aphrodite orders Psyche's parents to bring her up to the top of a mountain, where she was tied death to a stake. She orders her son, Eros, in Roman mythology he's known as Cupid, to shoot one of his arrows at Psyche just as she sees the god of death, which will cause Psyche to become instantly smitten with him. Then, at that moment, Aphrodite will untie death from the stake, and he and Psyche will tumble together off the mountaintop, back down into Hades, and Aphrodite will be rid of her rival. Take that, Psyche! Love and death will take care of that mere mortal. Of course, Eros does as his mother tells him. He flies to the mountaintop at the appointed time, just before sunset, and sees the terrified Psyche, who has just seen the unchained Thanatos, and is as frightened as anyone would be who sees death. Eros quickly takes an arrow to shoot at her, but accidentally pricks himself instead, causing him to fall hopelessly in love with Psyche. So, instead of causing Psyche to fall to her death in the arms of death, Eros swoops in to save her and flies her off to his own kingdom, in his own arms, in a valley far, far away, just as night falls. So Psyche cannot see Eros because it is dark. But as a god of love, Eros knows a thing or two about how to make love, and Psyche enjoys the most exciting night of her life. The next morning, Eros has already gone to work, and Psyche discovers that everything she wishes for, anything she wishes for, immediately appears in front of her. If she wants a banana split, voila, there it is. It's delightful. It's incredible. It's heaven on earth. At nightfall, Eros returns and again makes love to Psyche as only the god of erotic love can do. Day after day, Psyche is in a state of total bliss, doing anything she desires. And night after night, she is in a state of total bliss, enjoying Eros' sexual prowess. What's not to like? Eros has asked only one thing of Psyche. Do not ever look at me, and don't ask me what I do. Well, Psyche's fine with that. It seems a small price to pay for having everything she could ever desire. So the first years go by, and Psyche becomes pregnant with their first child. And this is when she starts to think about her parents and her sisters. She asks Eros if they could come visit. Over and over again, she asks if Eros will let her talk to her family. Well, Eros wants Psyche to have everything she wants, or at least he thinks he does, so he eventually gives in. But he only allows her to speak to her sisters, and to them only across a chasm. They cannot enter Eros' kingdom. When her sisters arrive at the appointed place, they figure out that Psyche is hiding the secret that she has not been allowed to look at her husband. They can see all the splendor of the palace and all the wealth and goods that Psyche is enjoying. They yell to Psyche across the valley separating them, "The reason your husband doesn't want you to look at him or ask him what he does is because he's a monster and he's going to eat your baby." Psyche does not believe her sister, but her fears triumph over her hope. And that night, she gets out a knife and a candle and hides them under her pillow. When Eros comes home and crawls into their bed, they make love as usual, but instead of falling asleep in each other's arms, Psyche gets out of bed and lights the candle. But she immediately trips over Eros's arrows, which he has left on the floor. And she is accidentally pricked by one. Instantly, she sees Eros's face, which he has asked her never to do, and instead of seeing a monster, she sees the most beautiful god of all, the god of Eros, and falls completely in love with him. She realized at that same moment that her sisters were jealous. That's why they lied to her. Just as she figures this out, a drop of wax falls on Eros's face and wakes him up. What does he see? He sees his wife with a knife in her hand staring down at him, the one thing he told her never to do. He doesn't even wait a fraction of a second, but instantly flies away to his mother Aphrodite's house on Mount Olympus. Psyche is suddenly alone. She's in the middle of nowhere, the palace is gone, and she's dressed in rags instead of the lovely clothes that she had been wearing since Eros had carried her off. Eros had left no trace. The palace is gone. There's nothing to eat. She's barefoot. She's alone. She's pregnant. Well, there's only one goddess one can pray to when one has a problem with love, and that is Aphrodite, Psyche's mother-in-law. Talk about a tough situation. But pray Psyche does. Please help me, O goddess Aphrodite. Aphrodite, enjoying the power she now has over her rival and daughter-in-law, tells Psyche that she will help her if she will perform a task. Psyche says, I'll do anything you ask. Please, just bring my Eros back to me. The task Aphrodite gives Psyche is to take a mountain of mixed seeds and to sort them. Psyche sees the impossibility of ever completing the task, and she faints. While Psyche is unconscious, little ants see her plight and separate the seeds for her. When Aphrodite returns in the morning and sees that all the seeds have been sorted as she requested, she is incensed. Well, she'll just have to catch her another way. She tells Psyche that she will help her only if she performs yet another task. I'll do anything you ask. Just please bring my Eros back to me. In this task, Psyche is told to go right into a flock of rams and shear some wool and bring it to Aphrodite. Psyche, who knows that the rams will kill her, faints. And while she is unconscious, the bushes by the side of the stream see her plight, and they want to help her. So they whisper a summons to the rams. Come, have a drink of water at the stream. As the rams pass the bushes pull a little fleece using their branches, so when Psyche wakes up, the bushes call her over and present her with all the fleece to take back to Aphrodite. Aphrodite responds that Psyche will have to perform yet another task. I'll do anything you ask. Just please bring my Eros back to me. This time, she tells Psyche to go to the river Styx and get just 1 cup of water from the river in a crystal goblet. Psyche knows if she goes anywhere near the river Styx, she will drown and die, and guess what she does? Right. She faints. And while she is unconscious, the eagle sees her plight and wants to help her, and so picks up the crystal goblet, flies to the middle of the river Styx, fills it up, and sets it down by Psyche's side. When Psyche wakes up, she is able to give her mother-in-law the crystal goblet filled with water from the river Styx. This time, Aphrodite is in a rage. She decides to make the next task so impossible, Psyche cannot possibly do it. Psyche says, I'll do anything you ask. Just please bring my Eros back to me. Aphrodite orders Psyche to go to a cave in Hades that is protected by the 3-headed dog god Cerberus to fetch her a jar of beauty cream. Aphrodite gives Psyche no advice, but she does give her 3 gifts to help her on her way. 2 coins, and a piece of bread. It's up to Psyche how to use them. This time, Psyche doesn't faint. Psyche gives one of the coins to Charon, who floats her across the river into the edges of Hades on his ferry. And she walks toward the cave. She sees a young man whose donkey is burdened by so many sticks that they are falling to the ground. The young man calls out to Psyche, "Please help me pick up my sticks." Psyche says, "No," and walks past the young man toward the cave. Then she passes a pond where there is an old man who is reaching out to her because he is drowning. He begs her, "Please save me." Psyche says no to the old man and keeps walking toward the cave. When Psyche finally arrives at the cave, Cerberus is a terrible sight guarding the entrance. Each of his 3 heads has a big mouth with big teeth, and they snap at her When Psyche finally arrives at the cave, Cerberus is a terrible sight guarding the entrance. Each of his 3 heads has a big mouth with big teeth, and they snap at one another and growl. Psyche does not faint. She tears the piece of bread in half and tosses one half toward the dog. The 3 heads fight one another for the morsel, and being distracted, Psyche is able to get past them into the cave and find the jar of beauty cream. When she leaves the cave with the jar, she tosses the remaining half of bread to the 3-headed dog. Each head fights again for the morsel so that Psyche is able to escape the cave unharmed. She hurries back to Charon's ferry and gives him the remaining coin to take her back safely to Earth. Then she goes off to find Aphrodite to present her with the requested beauty cream. But while she's walking back to find the goddess, she starts thinking about why Aphrodite wants the beauty cream. She wonders what would happen if she would use the cream herself. Would she be able to entice Eros to return to her because she would then be the most beautiful woman in the universe? Psyche merely starts to open the jar when all hell breaks loose. What she doesn't know is that this is not a jar of beauty cream, but rather a jar full of the spirit of death. Meanwhile, Eros, who has been watching Psyche from afar and has been missing her terribly because once one has been pricked by one of Eros's arrows, one never falls out of love, even if it is Eros himself who gets pricked. Eros sees what Psyche is about to do, flies in, grabs her, and once again saves her from death. Psyche drops the jar, which falls harmlessly back down the mountain into Hades. The 2 of them return back to their love paradise, and they live happily ever after. But I wouldn't want to have to be at a family reunion in that palace.